Hello, I'm Kerry Bull, and it's my pleasure to present this research snapshot on behalf of professionals and researchers in early childhood intervention, or PRECI. I'm here on Dja Dja Wurrung country, and I acknowledge the traditional custodians and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. Today, we're discussing Professor Bonnie Keilty's 2020 article, Assessing the Home Environment to Promote Infant-Toddler Learning within Everyday Family Routines. Bonnie is Professor and Chair of the Department of Special Education faculty at Hunter College, New York. Bonnie's also one of the keynote speakers for PRECI's inaugural conference in November 2022. In this presentation, I'll briefly talk through the article, and then we'll hear from Bonnie, who will discuss the importance of environments to child learning in home routines. Bonnie also provides some practical tips and strategies for practitioners. PRECI chose this article because it reports on current approaches to child assessment with a focus on strength-based practice, but also because of its focus on family routines, which is a crucial element of good practice in early intervention. Research has demonstrated the importance of assessment and intervention that focuses on the social interactions, physical features, and temporal environments of everyday family routines that make up the child's learning environment. The social environment is the interactions occurring between child and others, including sensitivity, consistent responsiveness, contingent responsiveness, and engagement in everyday routines. The physical environment is the inanimate features of a routine, including the environmental layout, objects and materials, and level of environmental stimulation. The temporal environment focuses on when routines and transitions occur, how long they occur, and how slow or quick the routines and transitions progress. The purpose of this article is to share the importance of environments to child learning in home routines and discuss how practitioners can partner with each family to create adaptations that uniquely fit the child and family. The paper proposes ways to assess environmental strengths and needs, whilst being respectful of individual family strengths, priorities, and culture. The researcher investigated 3 frequently used home assessments that consider social, physical, and temporal environments. First, the home observation measurement of the environment, or home, is introduced as a measure of the social and physical environment. Second, the piccolo is discussed as a measure of the social environment. And finally, we're introduced to Kara's kit that measures the physical and temporal environment. The researcher then provides practical examples through a case study of how early childhood intervention practitioners can partner with each family to create adaptations that uniquely fit the child and family. The focus is on strength-based practices. The researcher proposes that how routines occur in an individual family reflects that family's priorities and culture. By uncovering those elements during assessment, adaptations can be designed to fit the family's priorities and culture as much as they fit the child's developmental characteristics. The researcher found that practitioners can enhance assessment in 3 ways. Firstly, by affirming environmental strengths. This strategy goes beyond acknowledging what's working well, but affirms with the family how those strategies help their child learn. This provides an opportunity for families to share their thinking and how those features reflect the family's culture and priorities. Secondly, understanding environmental needs within the family context. When practitioners have a conversation with families to understand how particular environmental features might reflect the family's culture and priorities, they work towards adaptation recommendations that fit both the child and family. And finally, we can enhance assessment by respecting family culture. This assessment strategy explores how the family chooses to go about their routines in order to avoid assumptions about family priorities and culture when planning interventions. Adapting the social, physical, and temporal environments to support children's learning and development is a recommended practice. To plan such interventions, practitioners should analyse both the child and the environment. The focus should be on understanding environmental strengths and needs of family routines by answering the question, how well does the environment facilitate the individual child's learning experience? Assessment must also focus on understanding how those environmental characteristics reflect family priorities and culture by affirming environmental strengths, understanding environmental needs with the family context, and respecting family culture. There are a range of resources that can help us explore these practices further. The first 4 links relate to recommended practices, tools, and practice principles. The last is linked to a website that provides resources that aim to evolve how practitioners and parents work together. But let's hear from Bonnie.
Welcome to Bonnie Keilty, author of the 2020 article on assessing the home environments to promote infant-toddler learning within everyday family routines. Great to have you with us, Bonnie.
Thanks, Carrie.
Bonnie, in your article, you suggest that assessment can be enhanced in particular by 3 things. You talk about affirming environmental strengths, understanding environmental needs within the family context, and also respecting family culture. Why are these elements so important?
You know, when we think about how we assess young kids within the context of their families, frequently we either assess in the way that we would do it in classrooms, or we assess in a way that we think is family capacity building and we think is family centered by not focusing on the family environment and the family context. And it's really taking what we know that we would usually do in the classroom, but do it in a way that makes sense within the family. So we actually do want to use that professional expertise, but not the way we use it in the classroom. We need to use it in the way that the people who design that environment, which is the family, we need to do it within how they design it. So we need to understand the strengths of that environment, seeing what the environment looks like that is working for the child's learning and development, and also what's not working for the child's learning and development, but very specifically from the family's perspective too. And that's where the family culture comes in. And so then once we know the environmental strengths, what's working, we can affirm those, and that's family capacity building, is when we do talk about the environment and talk about it in ways that show all the great things that the family is doing. And at the same time, when we talk about and understand the environmental needs, and again, taking that from the perspective of the family of what's working and what's not working for them, how they think about their child's learning and development, that's actually family capacity building too, because then there's our jumping off point for building family capacity, but it's the family who's identifying the need. It's not us saying this environment is wrong or this environment looks a certain way that doesn't promote child learning and development. And of course, then if we're talking about the family's perception of those strengths and needs, then that is the family culture. And the more conversations we have with the family to understand what's working well and how they perceive what's working well and what their needs are, then that's going to show what the family's culture is. It's all situated. Everything that families talk about, the way they design their environment is the culture.
That makes good sense, Bonnie. And you really put an emphasis on practitioners not just understanding family strengths and culture and so on, but affirming and utilising them in a way that's supporting children's learning and development. Yeah. Bonnie, what are some practical ways that practitioners can go about using these strategies?
Yeah, yeah. And, and the first thing that we need to do is really just observe and observe like a fly on the wall. And that can be really hard for practitioners as well, because, we're help givers, right? Want to solve problems with families. And when families come to us and we think we have an answer and a quick answer, we want to share that. But that quick answer can actually decrease family capacity building and decrease family capacity and confidence and competence, because it's the professional giving the answer. But instead, if we observe and we see what's going on, and then we ask questions. So we want to be careful that we don't make assumptions and look through only our lens. Our lens is important because we bring that professional expertise, but also understanding the family lens of what's going on, that then we can really, really affirm those strengths. And what's great about thinking about affirming strengths and understanding and utilizing needs as part of assessment is that intervention is always happening. So you're really observing and being a fly on the wall so that you can intervene, so that you can identify those strengths. And that's intervention. And so recognizing that observation is not doing nothing. Observation is a very active process towards understanding. So observing, asking lots and lots of questions, thinking about, what are we seeing? Why are we seeing this? Why did the family do what they did? And that can be hard for professionals, again, because we come in with our lens, but what we're really doing is asking those questions to understand the family lens. And a couple of things that I think become really important to it. One is that context matters, and context is not home. Context is, breakfast. It's also not even just mealtime. It's breakfast. Breakfast looks different from lunch. Maybe, one parent and baby are there at lunch, and breakfast is, multiple kids, another spouse, rushing out the door. Or it could be, grandparents are there or whoever. So breakfast, lunch, dinner can all look very different. And that means that environment looks different. So we want to make sure that we understand those different contexts. And so one is the when, and then there's also the who. So again, it depends on who is interacting with the child, because adults interact with kids in different ways. And that's fine. Kids don't have to have adults interacting with every adult interacting with them the same way. If there's two parents, each parent might interact in different ways, and that's fine. But then we need to observe and understand how that parent interacts with that child, or any other caregiver interacts with that child, so that we can affirm the strengths that are happening, and then also identify for that particular individual how we might support them in different ways too.
So observation's critical, but then understanding what you're observing is even more important, and hearing that through the family lens.
Yeah. And once understanding, and part of understanding that actually is understanding, does it matter to the family? So, and there's a couple of ways it might matter or not. It might matter, but it's not something that, it might matter in terms of like, this is the way our family works. And so we might think that this could possibly be a need. And maybe the family might think it could be a developmental need for the child, but this is the way the family works. And we have to understand what we can and cannot modify about the environment. So having that conversation with the family allows us to make those decisions so that we don't swing the pendulum all the way over to turning a family's home into what we would do in a classroom, but still utilizing that expertise and bringing it into the home then means we do need to understand on this side how this home works. What don't we touch? And if we don't touch something that we thought, oh, this is a quick way we could remedy, we have to come up with something else. We have to think of a different way to address that need that still allows the family to function their culture the way that they want to.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope everyone enjoys the article.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing Professor Bonnie Keilty's insights into strength-based approaches. Thank you for joining us for this edition of PRECI's Research Snapshot.